Hi, 7th grade. Mrs. Hollenbeck here, and I hope that you were able to access the video 1. We are on lesson 2, or this is lesson 2 on page 7. And this is a context lesson, meaning after we do the first 10 words, then I'm going to take you to the first context lesson, and I'm not going to read this story. Let you do that. I'm just going to explain what to watch for. So here we go on page 7. Our first word is analogy. Analogy is a noun, and you had plenty of experience with analogies on the last lesson and last year for that matter. An analogy is when you look at two things and try to find a relationship. It's basically a comparison. All right, trying to find how they compare, how they work together, what relationship do they have. Okay, and it's a noun. Our second word is antiquity. Antiquity is a noun, and you can hear the word antique in the word antiquity, and it gives you a clue to its meaning. If something is of antiquity, it relates or it has to do with it being of an older time or of the past. If it's something, an heirloom of great antiquity, it's something very old, okay, from an older time. I am not a person of antiquity quite yet, even though I'm working on it. All right, so we won't go there. Our next word, electorate. Electorate is a noun, and actually electorate is it's kind of a collective noun where it sounds singular but it represents a whole group. All right, like class, that's a collective noun. Well, in the word electorate, we hear the word elect, or think of election, and certainly we're already getting enough campaign commercials to know it's an election year. Well, the electorate is the group of people who can vote in that election. All right, and so the campaign commercials are directed to the electorate. Okay. So while I'm not a part of antiquity, I am part of the electorate. Okay. Ethical is our next word. It's an adjective, that AL ending. So its noun form is ethic or ethics. And if you are known for ethics or demonstrating ethical behavior, you have a firm grip on what's right and what's wrong, and you stay away from what's wrong and you do what's right. If you show no ethics or demonstrate no ethics, you know right from wrong, but you're choosing wrong. Okay, so ethical that has to do with what's right and what's wrong. Okay. Our fifth word, excerpt. An excerpt is a noun. An excerpt, if we take a look at a book and I pick out a particular section to read, I may pick out an excerpt from that book and read and discuss that. So it's a small portion of a larger work, an excerpt. Okay, you take it, you have a whole piece and you take a little bit out, that's an excerpt. Okay. Our next word, and I did tell you excerpt was a noun, I believe. Heresy is also a noun. A little side note, when I was in college, I took a class in it was semantics, and we had to do etymologies, which are word histories, and I remember writing a 33-page paper on the word heretic, which heresy is a noun, a heretic is a person noun. Heretic is one who would spread heresy. And back in Martin Luther's day, 1500s, he was considered by the Catholic Church to be a heretic, a criminal, all right, accused of spreading heresy. Okay, so a heresy is what is a philosophy or a belief that is untrue or goes against what is currently being thought or taught. Okay, so if I taught that nouns were action words, that would be grammatical heresy. Okay, untrue. Okay, all right. Paternal. Paternal, just like ethical, that AL ending makes it an adjective. All right, so paternal, I'm not sure if it's 7th or 8th grade, but one of you two, or maybe it was last year, you had the word maternal, or you will have the word maternal. Well, paternal and maternal are closely related, and let me explain how I remember them. Paternal has to do with pa, father, okay? The patron of the family, the patriarch of the family. So patriarch and paternal have to do with pa. Matriarch and maternal have to do with ma, mom. Okay, so paternal is an adjective meaning having to do with dad. Okay, my kids have the paternal skills, paternal artistic skills. They get their artistic skills from their pa, their father. Okay. Our next word, pauper, is a person noun, and a pauper is a poor person. Okay, one who is a beggar, poor. You may have heard this in the title, The Prince and the Pauper. Okay. Anyway, let's see. Our next word is posthumous. Posthumous, OUS ending makes it an adjective. OUS, always adjective. All right. Now, post, in the front of your book, you look up the prefix post, and that means after. Okay, so the post-game results, the after the game results. Okay, now humus has to do with life. Okay, and death. Okay, so humus has to do with death, and so after death, that's what we get when we put posthumous together. Okay, and most artisans, most older artisans, receive fame posthumously after they're dead. Okay. Shakespeare wasn't one of those. He actually made quite a bit of money during his life, but he still receives much posthumous acclaim. Okay, after he is dead, he still is getting some. He's still popular. Okay, so posthumous, after death. Okay, prophetic is our last word, and prophetic is an adjective. Prophetic, we see prophet in there. Okay, what does a prophet do? Well, in the Old Testament, the prophets would foretell what's going to happen. God would give them the insight, and they'd foretell what's going to happen. They'd let the people know what God was going to do. So prophetic means we're going to predict what's going to happen. The weathermen tried to be prophetic in their guesses on the weather. Talk about the right job to be in. You get paid even when you're way off, right? But that's all right. Anyway, so prophetic, once again, adjective. All right, so I hope that helps you through the 10 words. Now, if you would, please turn to page 141. With the even lessons, we're going to do a context lesson. And the context lesson, you may recall, you read the story and pick out the clues or the contextual clues to give you hints about the answers for exercise 2, the multiple choice answers in exercise 2, which you can see begin on page 145. Well, I have you look at 141 because they give you examples of contextual clues, and I want to make sure you have a handle on those. All right. One type of contextual clue is when within the context you will be given an exact synonym of the word. So it may say the weatherman was prophetic or predictive in his foretelling of the weather for the weekend. Okay. That is giving you a context clue by way of exact synonym. Now, the author of the article may also give you a context clue by way of giving you the opposite. So some of the words you need to look for would be the word not, okay, or never. That would be giving you a clue that, we may be looking for the opposite of the meaning of the word, all right, to help us identify the meaning of the word. All right. For instance, let me, if our word, let's see, try to give you, the man who drove past was obviously not a pauper, considering he was driving a Hummer. Okay, well, he was not a pauper because he was driving a Hummer. Okay, well, okay, what's the opposite of a pauper? Okay, somebody who could afford a Hummer. Okay, let's see, another technique that the author of the article may use would be to give you an example of the word, not an exact synonym, but give you an example of the word. I want you to turn example of this onto page 144. This article you're going to be reading is about Socrates. And in order to give you an explanation or give you a clue to the word excerpt, the author actually gives you an excerpt from something that Socrates wrote. All right, we see that on the top, the first column on page 144. All right, so one way that an author will give you a contextual clue is by giving you an example of what that word is. So to tell you or to show you what an excerpt is, the author gives you an excerpt. Okay? Now, how do you write this for your answer? You see in exercise 1, you're supposed to write, okay, what's the contextual clue? Well, this is word number 9, excerpt. I would write an example of an excerpt from the Apology. So the Apology is what Socrates wrote, and then what is in quotation marks is the actual excerpt. Okay, so I'd write an example from the Apology. You don't have to write the whole thing, just write an example. Okay, let's see, another, I want to make sure I gave you all the possibilities. Sometimes they'll give you a positive. Now this is a flashback to grammar class, and a positive is a noun that comes right after a noun that renames the noun. Okay, for instance, Mrs. Hollenbeck, that's the noun. Our teacher, that's the noun that comes right after the noun that renames Mrs. Hollenbeck. Now you know I'm the teacher too. Okay, sometimes the author will give you a contextual clue that's in a positive. Well, can only do that with a noun, because on a positive it's a noun that follows a noun. Okay, to help you out there. All right, I think those are all the oh no, there's another, and this book loves to use this one because it is a higher level thinking skill. This book, the authors of these articles love to throw in similes and metaphors. They love to throw in comparisons or analogies, okay, where they will say, give you the word and then say, and it is like, and they'll give you a simile. Every time they do that, you can bet that that's going to be in the question in exercise 2, in the multiple choice question. Always write down the simile or the metaphor, because they will always ask you about that. That is a huge contextual clue, because if you are if you can relate something to something else, if you could see how two very different things have something in common, ooh, you're learning something deeper about those two things. All right, so that's what they try to get you to do. Understanding simile and metaphors, boy, that's a huge skill, and these books really work on that. Okay, so anytime you see that, oh, know for sure. Okay, so I want you to read the article, ask me questions about this, but I really want you to try to make some guesses on your own. Say, I think the contextual clue is this. Am I right? I'd love to help you out with that. Anyway, your context lesson starts on page 143. Yeah, the article is on 143 and 144. And then exercise 1 and 2, it ends on page 148. Follow the worksheet pages on the worksheet that I gave you, and make sure to post any questions that I can help you with. See you later, 7th graders.